My mother-in-law hates her ex-husband, and I mean hates. They were divorced for a long time, but I'm getting to the point where I'm about to lose my cool. Because she doesn't want to be anywhere around her ex. I'm talking Thanksgiving dinners, family get-togethers. She's pulling the family apart. Can't she just be civil with her ex-husband for once? This is what she did this time.
Hey, I'm Cara. I'm an interior designer and I manage my own company. I'm a married woman. I married my husband Cam almost a decade ago now. Cam and I were high school sweethearts, and it was the obvious course of action after we graduated to move in together. I was starting my own business with another friend of mine from college, and it was a tight place financially. That's when Cam suggested that we move in together, and a year later, after about 6 years of dating, he asked me to marry him. We've had met each other's family beforehand. He was over at my house constantly during high school, and I had met his father, Rick, when I was a teenager as well. His mother was hard to track, though. She barely came to meet Cam, let alone me. Her name's Becky. Becky and Rick had a bad divorce years ago, and she gave Cam and his sister's custody to Rick and left for the other side of the country. Becky was kind of a sore spot for Cam. He didn't like his mom much, finding her too controlling. He was over the moon as a preteen when it was his father who had gotten his custody. He was also traumatized by Becky constantly screaming at Rick when he was a child and was just glad to be away from all the toxicity. This was not the experience of Cam's sister Lauren, who took their mother's side in the divorce. She disliked her father's easygoing personality, but she was forced to live with Rick because Becky did not want any kids to weigh her down. She loved when Becky would visit them and would spend all her time with her mother whenever she would come to see them a few times every year. The first time I met her officially was at a restaurant. Cam had wanted to officially introduce me to his mother during our third year in college. Cam was not looking for approval or anything from her, but Becky pretended like the dinner was an interview. She asked me so many personal questions, and all through the dinner, like my dating history and my family's history with diseases, it felt very awkward, and to rub salt on the wound, she told Cam that she did not approve of me at the end of the dinner, before she left. He informed her that he doesn't want her approval, which struck her as odd. Either way, we did not meet her often, so we ignored her existence most of the time. Well, she did pretend to be very happy when we got engaged, and just pretended like she was not rude to me behind my back to Cam the first time that I met her, and had not approved of me. The wedding planning, it was very difficult because Becky tried micromanaging everything. Even on the other side of the country, she had thoughts on everything that she was not afraid of expressing in the middle of the night, or while me or Cam were at work. We were quite annoyed by her constantly trying to get into our business. The wedding, it was kind of a disaster. A few drinks in, and Becky was telling everybody around her about how we did not go with any of her choices of decor or food. She wasn't happy that we went with a more fun theme, instead of a classier theme like she wanted. She did not approve of the song that we had our first dance to. It was fine until she told me that my wedding dress made my arms look huge and ugly. Wow. That's when Cam stepped in and told her to stop criticizing our dream wedding. She just shrugged and told us that she would have thrown us a better wedding only if we would have let her call the shots instead. We thought that would be it. But how wrong were we? After we got married, Becky began to drop in without giving us any notice whether she liked it. She loves inviting herself to live with us without our consent, and she often does it for months on end. Why she doesn't go live with her favorite daughter is anybody's guess. I think it's because she doesn't want to inconvenience her and her husband, but who cares if we are inconvenienced, am I right? And all through these visits of her, she would not keep her mouth shut. Once, me and Cam returned to our house only to find all the furniture of our bedroom moved around. Becky claiming that the new position for the furniture is just better. She didn't think that it was a breach of our privacy, not even when I found out that she snooped into my closet after I found her wearing my dress one night. She claimed that she didn't have anything to wear, so she helped herself to my closet. Ever since, every time she's visited us, I've started locking our closets and bedroom door. She often does these small things like these absolutely things that aggravate me. She loves to micromanage every small thing in the house when she's over. She once, guys, listen to this one, uprooted my plants in the backyard, claiming that growing vegetables was much better than flowers, and then proceeded to turn my garden into a small farm that she promptly left to die when she left and I did not have time to cultivate. The last visit my mother-in-law gave us, it was about 8 months ago, at Cam's birthday. We were expecting her to drop by during Christmas, but just 2 months before Christmas we got a call saying that my father-in-law Rick got into a horrible accident. He got hit by a truck and the driver was heavily intoxicated. Rick was in the hospital for 2 weeks. We had of course told Becky about the accident, but that was it. She did not ask for details. Rick was wheelchair-bound after being released from the hospital, and we all talked about it and decided that it would be best if we keep him with us instead of letting him live alone in the house, which was a few blocks away from us. He was reluctant, not wishing to be burdened, but he would be a burden if he's insisting on staying alone, which case we would have to go out of our way to always keep an eye on him. He's been living with us for the past few weeks now, and his condition's getting better every day. His legs still don't completely work, and the doctors say it's going to take a few months to walk again. But his other wounds, they're healing pretty well. And this has also given Cam an opportunity to spend more time with his dad like he used to when we were younger. Everything's been going great so far. Rick's gracious as a house guest, and he tries to leave us alone and tries to help us around the house if he can. He loves feeding our cats and plants while being on a wheelchair. He also helps vacuum the house even though we didn't tell him to. He's just the kind of person who doesn't like being a burden, and it's his way of helping in the small ways that he can. However, things went downhill when Becky called me yesterday. She told me that she knows that Rick is living with us. That's why she was giving us a notice, and she said that we need to get rid of Rick so that she can come over to our house for Christmas. I was shocked and told her that Rick was in no condition to be left alone, and he needed us. She told me that she needed us too, and where else would she visit? She was very condescending over the phone, acting like she was superior to Rick, and that of course we would love to host her, even though she did not ask us in the first place. I tried to explain, but she pretended not to hear me. She just gave me an ultimatum to throw Rick out of the house before she comes over for Christmas, and then she just straight up hung up the phone. Well, I was horrified at how flippant Becky was. She doesn't like Rick, that much is pretty clear. But this was just heartless if you ask me. She didn't ask after Rick, not even once after we informed her. Well, that he was in an accident and that was it. She thinks hosting here is more important than taking care of Rick, who, by the way, is in a wheelchair. Come on. For at least a few more months he is. Cam was equally horrified at his mother's behavior. He was adamant that we would do no such thing as to send Rick back in his situation. But what should we do? Cam's going to talk to his mom. Maybe she will listen to him instead of me. But how selfish of Becky. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So I'm going to check out some top comments before we head into the first update. These two comments are kind of heated. The first one comes from Kura. Becky is definitely acting out of bounds. She can't just barge into your lives for months and expect you to change plans to better accommodate her. She's very entitled, and you should just stand your ground and not let her control your life. She's not entitled to your house or your time, remember that. Don't let her get away with this and try to accommodate her. She's out of bounds, even if Rick wasn't involved in the situation. She acts as if your house is hers and she can just do whatever. If you convey your boundaries in a clear manner in this situation, she might step out of it a bit. And just because you dislike your ex-husband does not mean you can't dictate your son's actions with him. I also hope that Rick is alright and gets better soon. He sounds like a very nice guy. Comment number 2 by Raro287. I understand that your mother-in-law has always had issues with boundaries, so, she often oversteps and is quite frankly unbearable by the looks of it. But I don't think she's the bad guy here. Hear me out. By the looks of it, she isn't really aware of Rick's condition. Does she know that Rick is in a wheelchair and really can't just go back to his house so she can spend Christmas with you? I feel like we don't have enough information. But you said that she did not ask him after your first information of her, so I'm assuming she doesn't know how bad Rick's condition is. You should definitely talk to her, explain the conditions to her. Maybe she'll be more understanding and decide to spend this Christmas with her daughter instead. Instead of branding her a villain, explain the situation to her in a straightforward manner. Update number 1. Hey everyone, it's Cara. I told you about how my mother-in-law Becky expects me and my husband Cam to just ask my father-in-law Rick to leave because she wants to visit us over Christmas, even though he was recently in a car accident and is quite wounded. I read your comments and I thought that they were right. I should calmly explain the situation Rick is in to her. So this is exactly what I and Cam decided to do today after her call just a week ago. Cam and I talked to her right over the phone, and we informed her that Rick was wheelchair-bound and we could not just throw him out of the house because she wants to visit. Becky was mad that we won't even make a small sacrifice for her. But it wasn't about making sacrifices. How can we just throw a wounded man out on the house just so that she could stay with us? We suggested that she could still come over, but Rick would be around and she would just have to deal with it. She snorted and told us that she would do no such thing. She went on a rant about how Rick is one of the most irresponsible people she's ever met, never listening to her. She called him useless and a good-for-nothing man. I could tell that Cam was growing agitated, so I tried to bring the conversation back on track. I suggested maybe she could stay with her daughter this time around, and I and Cam will just host a dinner for his family, and everybody comes over to our house. This way, Becky would only have to deal with Rick for one dinner. I thought this was the solution that was good for everyone, but Becky did not think the way that I did. She grew really offended. She claimed that she now understood what we were trying to do. She claimed that we were finding ways to get rid of her. She claimed that we did not want her in her house, which was technically true, and Rick was only a way of making that happen, which was definitely the part that's untrue. We tried to explain that her demand was unreasonable, and that this was the only reasonable solution to the conundrum. But we had offended her in her eyes, and that was it. She starts to cry over the phone that her own son and daughter-in-law that she has always helped doesn't want her. She cried that we could have just told her that we didn't like her in a straightforward way, instead of beating around the bush trying to find excuses to get the message across. So that's when Cam had enough. He claimed that we did not like her constantly showing up at the house unannounced. He told her that this was controlling and overbearing, and we did not want her around ever. But we'd always tried to be good to her and never said a word. And if she could not understand that her demand was unreasonable, we can't just ask Rick to leave, then she's never welcome in our house in the future. Becky did not even say a word. She just dropped the call without saying anything. Honestly, I don't think that Cam is in the wrong. Becky was not being reasonable. This would get her off of our backs forever now. And Cam doesn't have any remorse. We weren't close to her after all. Update number 2. Hey everyone, this is Cara here once again. Me and my husband Cam confronted mother-in-law Becky, who was making unreasonable demands a week ago. We are usually the ones who host the Christmas dinner. All of Cam's uncles and aunts and his cousins came over for the dinner, and it's a huge event in our family. And we had started hosting after we had gotten married almost a decade ago. We had assumed that we would be hosting again this year as well. However, this is an issue this year. Laura gave Cam a call a few days ago. She claimed that she could not come over for Christmas dinner, claiming that she was busy. Cam and Lauren have never been close, even after spending their childhood under the same roof. Lauren was not a huge fan of her father and usually sided with her mom. So Cam had not wanted to overstep with her and accepted the little explanation she gave. He told me I was kind of bummed about it, but I don't know. I didn't particularly like Lauren, but I adored her daughters. However, this was not all the calls that we got this week. Oh no. Many of Cam's uncles and aunts canceled on us without giving concrete explanations. We came to the conclusion that Becky had somehow gotten them on her side, telling them that we did not want her to come over at all. When a cousin Cam is very close to calling to cancel, he could not take it anymore and asked him what Becky had told everyone. He claimed that Becky has told everyone that we hate her and refused to host her at the dinner, uninviting her to the Christmas event. Well, we asked about Rick. He claimed to know nothing about him. No one knew that Rick has been in an accident and was living with us. Becky had conveniently removed that part from the story. Oh, so sympathetic. All the uncles and aunts from Becky's side, so we had not thought to inform them of Rick's accident when it happened. And neither had Becky, clearly. Turns out that Lauren is hosting this year's Christmas dinner, and we're clearly not invited, it seems. And everyone that canceled on us without giving us concrete reasons is now going to her dinner instead of ours. She is also hosting her mother this time. This has made me and Cam beyond mad, and Becky and her behavior. She lied to the family to seem innocent, and she framed us as the evil couple who would not even let her stay with them over Christmas. We can't stand for it. Cam and I plan to crash the dinner, along with Rick, who still can't walk and has to use a wheelchair. We plan to expose her lies and manipulations to the whole family to see. Becky thinks that she can get away with micromanaging everything and manipulating the family against us. But we won't stand for it this time. She needs to be taught a lesson, and with Rick behind us, nobody can support her unreasonable demands. Can they? I guess we'll find that out in the week until Christmas. Update number 3. Hey guys, it's Carrie here. It was Christmas dinner yesterday, the day me and my husband, Cam, were planning to expose my mother-in-law, Becky, and her manipulations in front of everybody. We had showed up at Lauren's house without being invited, and she had been shocked to see us there and asked us to leave. She didn't want to draw attention to the fact that we showed up with my father-in-law in a wheelchair. So clearly she knew about her father's condition and had still sided with her mom. She tried to get us to leave, but Cam was not having it. He moved past her into the house, pushing Rick on in the wheelchair. When the guests started to notice us, slowly the room went silent after seeing Rick in a wheelchair. Cam's uncle asked what happened to Rick. So Cam explained that Rick has been in an accident and was unable to walk, so we had decided to take him in with us until he was able to live on his own in the upcoming future. It was clear that no one at the family dinner, except for perhaps Lauren and Becky, knew that Rick wasn't able to walk, and they had gone white as sheets. Becky, she tried to backpedal out of the situation until control by asking us if we have come to throw her out of Lauren's house too because of how much we hated her. This did bring back the ire of the room because of us, but we weren't having it. I announced that we had never thrown her out of our house in the first place. We had simply invited her over, and it was her who had an issue with Rick. I told everyone that Becky had wanted me and Cam to throw Rick out of the house just to host her, even after knowing the condition Rick was in. So this actually came as a shock to everyone, as they started to just mutter among themselves. I told them that I've even suggested that she lives with Lauren over the holidays and maybe she could come over for dinner. That way she would only have to spend one dinner with Rick, but she had refused, claiming that we were finding excuses of not hosting her this time. When clearly we did have a reason, especially after she was not ready to compromise and was making unreasonable demands from us. And I also pointed the blame at Lauren. I claimed that Lauren had then decided to host a dinner and not invite us just because. Even more distance between us is caused from that, and all the relatives, so they would never find out. Lauren pretended that she was unaware about her father's condition, but Becky threw her under the bus, claiming that she was a liar. Becky went even further and claimed that it's been Lauren who had even suggested that she lies to everybody so that we could host a dinner this year. Everybody was horrified at seeing this, the mother-daughter fight in front of them play out, so they shifted the blame to me. But it was clear that they both were in cahoots and just lied to them all. They started to come forward and apologize to us for not asking for the whole story and blindly believing Lauren and Becky. They even asked Rick about his health, but it was clear that the Christmas dinner was not happening this year at Lauren's place. But lucky for us, I had prepared the Christmas dinner at my house, so everybody happily just got up and came over. But of course, this time Becky and Lauren were not invited. Final update. Hey guys, it's Cara again. I know it's been a few weeks since my last update, and I thought I would just update you guys again to end this drama once and for all. I told you how the Christmas dinner went down at Lauren's house in my last update. Well, me and my husband Cam, with the help of his father Rick, exposed Becky and Lauren in front of everyone. Everyone then happily joined us for the Christmas dinner that we usually hosted every year. The family is angry with Becky. They saw how she manipulated the situation and tried to seem like the innocent party instead of an unreasonable woman who was plain entitled for no reason. All through the dinner, everyone shared their horror stories involving Becky, and there had been quite a few. They had not thought too much about her toxicity before her manipulations were exposed by Cam and I. Ever since, no one has heard from them much, and all we know is that Becky and Lauren are no longer talking after they tried to shift the blame on others. But either way, nobody wants to keep any sort of relationship with either of the two. I think it's safe to say that Cam and I will not have to deal with Becky anytime in the future. It doesn't look like she'll be dropping by unannounced ever again. Not after we humiliated her in front of the whole family. I guess this situation was a blessing in disguise. We're no longer going to be bombarded with her controlling nature. Rick is also doing much better now. He's doing physical therapy, and the doctor thinks that he might be walking soon. Sooner than he initially anticipated. He still, of course, lives with us, and he's just as nice as ever. Now that the other injuries have healed on him, he tried to help out even more. He's a gracious host, and we are very, very proud to host him. Thank you guys for just following the journey. The situation had really made me mad. I was very frustrated when I begun writing this drama, and talking about it here really helped the frustration, so thank you. Top comments from the entire post. Comment number 1 from 987 says, Becky is a truly horrible human being. I'm sorry that you and your husband had to deal with such a woman for so long. At least finally you're free of her. I hope she never shows up at your house unannounced ever again. She sounds like a horrible human to have in one's life. And Lauren was in cahoots with her mother to frame you as the villain in front of the whole family? I can't believe it. She did not even care that her father was injured. I mean, she didn't seem like a huge fan of Rick, but it's common decency to ask what the man, who raised you if they were injured. Even if you don't particularly like them. I'm just glad that the family has cut ties with them. They sound like a horrible person. Also, I'm so glad to hear that Rick is recovering well. Final comment by Kim34. Hey Cara, I get why you were upset that Becky pretended to be the victim of the situation, but you did tell her that you did not want her around. She did not lie. You were horrible to her while you were explaining Rick's condition to her. Sure, she was being unreasonable, but you indeed were terrible in her return. You literally told her that she was never invited to your house in the future, ever. And you really are shocked that she reacted the way she did? She was probably offended and lashed out just like you did. You should have tried to be nicer to her. After all, she is your mother-in-law. You were too harsh with her, and expecting her to be nice to you in return? I think that you are the unreasonable one in this situation. I'm just glad to hear that Rick is doing much better.
So, we see today another very controlling, very demanding, very toxic mother-in-law. And it just makes me wonder, is this the worst mother-in-law we've seen all week? I want to know your thoughts on it. But what she did was not lie to a stranger on the internet. No, she was manipulating her own family against each other and lying to half of them, making OP seem like the bad person. I just want to know what you guys thought about today's story, what you would have done differently if you were in OP's position. And here's the question. Would you have shown up at the Thanksgiving dinner with Rick in the wheelchair after they told you to beat it? Let me know your thoughts, guys. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every single day. If you guys want to be a part of these daily readings, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you again. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. And just, of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.